Hi, everyone. This is Mr. Eisenbrown from the Counseling Department at Evergreen Park Community High School, and want to take the opportunity to provide both students and parents with an information session regarding the college application process, specifically for those junior students and their families. Although this information could be used for students of a younger class as well. But again, we want to let those students and families, let them know what to expect over the course of the next 18 months if their student is looking to further their education at either a 2 or 4-year college. That is the majority of what this information session is regarding, is if you are looking to attend a 4-year college or university after Evergreen Park. And then there's information as well about attending a junior or community college. So first, the questions that have been asked by every junior student and their families for years and years and years. This is the questions that usually keeps people up at night. But how do they find the right college? There's so many colleges across the country. How do we find that right one for our son or daughter to make sure that they have a really good experience after high school? How do they even go about applying? If this is your first son or daughter to go to college, or maybe it's been a while since an older brother or older sister has gone through this process, trying to remember how it is that they actually even go about that. How do my family and I afford this? The cost of college is going up and up and up, unfortunately. So how do we make this work financially for both the family and our student? And are they actually ready to go to a 4-year college? Are they ready to handle the responsibilities that go along with either going out of the house or going to a college or university at this time? Throughout the course of the presentation, we'll give you some tools and some resources to hopefully help answer the majority of these questions. So first and foremost, what do colleges actually look for in undergraduate admissions? So when a student from Evergreen Park Community High School sends in that application, they send in their transcript, what are those colleges actually looking at when making their admissions decisions? So here's the factors that are widely considered. The most predominant factor does tend to be cumulative grade point average. And again, that's their student's grade point average from the first semester of freshman year until the time that they apply. Now, for most students are going to apply in the fall of their senior year. So then college admissions offices are looking at freshman, sophomore, and junior year grades. We will send senior year grades after the end of the first semester, but by and large, the majority of students have already applied to those universities, and in a lot of cases have already gotten those decisions back using freshman, sophomore, and junior year grades. So in terms of grade point average, again, the minimum GPA to even qualify for an application review tends to be about a 2.0. However, as you will see a little bit later, the average GPA that gets accepted into universities is significantly higher than that. And again, it does vary from university to university, as you will see. They also look at class rigor, which is the difficulty level of the classes you are taking in high school. Has your student tried an honors course or advanced placement courses? Have they taken 4 years of science, 4 years of math? Have they done their foreign language? And also, in terms of selecting their electives, does that line up with a student's potential interest? If somebody is applying as an engineering major, they would probably want to see that they have taken the architectural engineering design class here at Evergreen Park. Likewise, if they are a business major, did they take Intro to Business here at Evergreen Park? So again, taking the most out of the classes we have to offer here in high school. And then class rank. Again, typically most universities and colleges are looking for students that rank in the top half of their graduating class. Again, that is not exclusive, but that it tends to be the where they really start looking at those class ranks. And again, test scores. SAT and ACT scores. It does not matter which tests the students take. I know years ago there were certain schools or colleges that only took one or the other. That is not the case any longer. Colleges will take either the SAT or ACT with no preference given to the other. We just happen to reside in SAT state. All of the juniors this year are going to take the SAT in school on April 13th. Again, and that is an official SAT score that can be used for college applications. Now, we always like to say for any students who are considering going away to a four-year college or university after Evergreen Park, we definitely recommend they take the SAT more than once, simply because the highest score wins. Colleges consider the highest SAT score a student received, no matter how many times they took the test. If any students are looking to sign up for an additional SAT test, the next couple dates that are coming up are March 13th and May 8th. Students just simply enroll for those on their College Board account, and they would take those at another local high school. If there are any students that are interested in taking those ACT score, or taking the ACT and using those scores potentially, the next ACT offered is April 17th, followed by June 12th. And again, these are factors that colleges do use. Now, that being said, there are certain colleges that you can apply to what's called test optional, which means that students can elect whether or not they want their standardized test scores used in the admissions decision process. If they choose not to, then the other factors would be more highly considered. Again, GPA, class rigor, class rank, those things. Personal essay, which we'll talk about a little bit later, is a really key factor as well as recommendations from staff, teachers, coaches, those kind of things, as well as extracurricular activities and service. This is a big one that colleges will consider. They want to make sure that students on their campus are getting involved. It helps make for a more vibrant college campus and college community if students are involved in a plethora of activities. And the best indicator for that on the student end is if a student was very involved in high school, they are more likely to be very involved in college. So again, that's the reason that colleges really do look at that. It also helps colleges know that students traditionally know how to balance not only their academic work, but also any extra responsibilities they have. And again, the thing to know is that every college is a little different. Some colleges, put a real emphasis on GPA and test scores. Other colleges may look more favorably at class rigor and personal essay and extracurriculars. Again, it all depends on the college. There is no specific formula for this process, but these are the typical factors that most colleges and universities across the country do consider in some fashion. All right, so now let's talk a little bit about social media. And this is something we've talked about with our students, since really they were freshmen here at Evergreen Park Community High School. And that's just being aware of what they put out there for the world to see. The reality is, most colleges do have a social media team. Most admissions counselors, when they get an application, will quickly type the student's name into the various social media platforms and just to see what's out there. This is not to catch anybody doing anything. It's just simply to verify the student is who they say they are. If the student has talked about, being a member of a lot of different athletic teams or clubs here, you would probably see something like that through one of their social media feeds. And again, just helps the admissions counselor get a little bit better grasp of who that person is. With that being said, though, we want to remind our students that things that you put out there are going to be judged rightly or wrongly. So again, if they're putting something out there that maybe is a little negative, they may want to look at possibly seeing if they can remove that from their social media platform, just to give a good representation of who they are to college admissions counselors. All right. So the biggest thing is finding the right fit. And you're going to hear that talked about a lot throughout the course of this presentation, finding the right college fit. There are about 5,500 colleges and universities across the United States. So how do we possibly narrow that down into, well, first, just the 7 to 10 schools that we're going to apply to? right? 5,500 down to 10 is quite daunting. And then how do we take that even further down into the 2 or 3 schools we're really going to consider? And then finally, that final choice. And again, this should be different for every student, every family. So the student and family really need to develop their own criteria, student-led, of course, because again, in the end, it is the student who is going to be attending that college and university. It's their path after Evergreen Park Community High School. So the biggest thing to do is give this time and thought. We don't want any students just throwing out applications just because they got an email, or just because they've heard of a college, or just because something's close. There should be specific reasons why it makes sense for the student. So again, have that conversation in the house. What does the student want to get out of their college experience? And a couple key factors to help them develop their own criteria for what they're looking for. And we'll go over each of these individually, but admission standards, the size and cost of the school, location, the reputation of selected majors, clubs, student organizations, as well as social atmosphere. If all of these kind of fit and make sense for what a student wants out of their experience, and it can really help filter down those colleges to fit these categories. All right. So as we talked about, colleges do consider, obviously, academic marks quite seriously when they're when looking at admissions. So right here, we're just giving an example of some of the more popular colleges that our students apply to, and just showing what their average GPA and test scores are of the students that are accepted at those colleges. And again, as you can see on the slide here, this varies greatly from institution to institution. So again, it's just something that students need to be aware of, because again, depending on your own personal GPA and test scores, some schools will be you're very likely to get into. Others may be a bit of a stretch. So again, if I particularly, let's say I'm a student that has a 3.5 GPA, I apply to UIC, I have pretty good chance of getting in there. However, if I'm that same student with a 3.5 GPA and I'm applying to Notre Dame or Northwestern, it's probably a big reach for me that I'm going to get into that school. I would have to have really, really good test scores and bring some other things to the table as well. And same thing with SAT scores. Again, these marks you see here are just averages. These are not cutoffs. The test score ranges that you see kind of represent the middle 50% of students that are accepted. So if we use Northern Illinois is the example on the left-hand column, second one down from the top. The range is from a 1010 to an 1180. It's a pretty wide range. What that means is that that's the middle 50% of students in their class that was accepted. 25% of students scored above the 1180, and 25% of students that were admitted scored under a 1010. And again, typically, we want to make sure that if we can, that we're either at or above these academic criteria. It helps kind of ensure that we are more likely to get into that college and more strongly considered, or at least right around there as well. So again, this is just a good idea to have a good working knowledge of what those academic marks are for the colleges that students are interested in. And again, as I mentioned, we can't encourage enough for our students who are looking to go to a 4-year college or university after high school that they need to take the SAT or ACT more than once. Again, it's like anything else. The more times you do something, the more comfortable you're going to be, the more familiar students are with the material, with the timing of the exam, and are likely to do better, which again leads to better outcomes in admissions and also hopefully scholarship consideration as well. All right, so we just showed you a slide of the more popular schools that students from Evergreen Park apply to. On this slide, you will see what are called highly selective colleges. So again, this tends to be your Ivy League schools, as well as you can see here, MIT, Stanford, University of Chicago. Again, these are schools that if your student has expressed interest in, because they're a high achiever. We always tell students, valedictorians are not guaranteed to get into these schools. Students with perfect test scores many times will not get into these schools. Students with perfect GPAs sometimes do not get into these schools because the top students at every high school across the country, as well as international students that are coming to the United States, are applying to these same subset of schools. As you can see, the middle 50% SAT scores for these institutions are almost near perfect scores. And even of those students, they only accept a very small percentage, as you can see over in the right-hand column. So again, this is not saying don't apply to these schools if they're your dream. By all means, if you are, at or near the criteria for this, go ahead, give it a shot. But we always say it's a little bit like playing the lotto. You put your best information out there, everything you've done in high school, and then you just hope that person reading that application really likes what you can bring to the table. But again, we do want our students just to be aware of, kind of how difficult it can be to get into some of these institutions. All right, so another factor that we want students and families to think about when trying to determine what are the types of colleges that are best for students is school size. On the bottom, the picture is Michigan State University in East Lansing, Michigan, which is an absolutely wonderful school, but it is a giant, giant campus. So again, and as you can see, the size of this campus is roughly about the size of Evergreen Park. Again, it stretches a wide, wide range. And again, large schools versus small schools, they both bring something. They both bring great things to the table. They both have their pros and cons. So, for example, large schools, they're able to offer more majors, more specializations, undergrad research right there at the institution. They're going to have more clubs, student organizations, because there's more people and a wider alumni base for networking. Again, because more students have come through those institutions in the past, it can be easier to connect with alumni for their graduates. Then again, small schools kind of offer the opposite, which is more personalized attention in the classroom. Campuses that are easier to navigate, smaller student to faculty ratios, and professors who actually teach. So again, if you have a student or you are a student that knows you need to work pretty closely with your instructors to make sure you get the best educational value there, then perhaps a small school is better for you. But if you're somebody who maybe has difficulty, thinks you might have difficulty navigating such a large school, then perhaps a smaller school is for you. On the transverse, if you're somebody that it is maybe unsure what you want to do and you want to have a lot of options in terms of selecting a major, maybe a large institution is great. But the one thing to know, and then what we ask all students to consider, is what kind of student are you? And what am I looking for in my college experience? And to be honest, what I always say is if you find that you have difficulty, number one, getting to high school on time, and then really actively participating in your high school classes here at Evergreen Park, when there's, 16 to 24 students, how are we going to do at a school like Michigan State, where to get from one side of campus to the other, if you're walking, it's going to take you about 40 minutes. And then you might be in an auditorium with 200 to 300 other kids for your introductory classes. So again, if you struggle with some of those responsibility and organizational skills here, how will you be when you're kind of left alone and you are essentially kind of a little bit of a number there? So again, we just want every student to be aware of this to help them make the right choice and find the right fit. So school size is a very important thing to consider. Cost of attendance. Again, as I mentioned earlier, the cost of college, unfortunately, is not going down. Hopefully at some point that will either flatline or go down, but it just hasn't yet. So as we're looking at different colleges, and I'm sure, if you're a junior parent, junior student, you've already gotten a lot of emails, a lot of things in the mail from different colleges, and both public and private. And again, just like the bigger versus smaller schools that we talked about, public versus private schools both have great things that they offer. But you will notice when you are looking at that information and when you're looking at the tuition for each of those, private schools are going to they're going to look like they cost a lot more. That's what's called the sticker price. Um, don't feel priced out yet. So if you're somebody that was interested in maybe in, let's say, DePaul or Loyola or Lewis University, and you look at the sticker price, you're like, well, we can't afford that. So then it makes you only look at public schools whose sticker price is a little bit lower. Don't feel priced out yet, because even though those schools have a higher sticker price, after scholarships, after grants, after awards are applied through financial aid, a lot of times they can end up being just as much, or in some cases lower, than public institutions. So don't feel like you have to eliminate schools just yet. What we encourage you to do is, if you're interested in public and private schools, and they make sense for you, apply to them. And then when the final financial aid award letters come in, then you determine whether or not it makes sense from a fiscal standpoint. We also have a lot of students who are interested in leaving the state of Illinois. And for those that do want to do that, there often is a $10,000 or more bump for students that are going out of state. So to combat that and to keep good students in the Midwest, there's something called the Midwest Tuition Exchange Program, and that's where colleges will give discounted out-of-state tuition rates to students from Illinois. Again, it's not all schools that do this, but there are a lot. University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, University of Kansas, University of Nebraska, Indiana State University, Ball State. Again, there's a Southeast Missouri State University. There's a lot of schools that will allow students from Illinois to go there at a more discounted rate. So it can be a nice way to make going out of state affordable. As you can see, the link is right there if you are interested in possibly going out of state, but maybe you want to do it at a little bit of a discounted rate than paying the full out of state tuition price. All right, and one way obviously to look at and anticipate what the tuition is going to be are merit scholarships. Again, most schools offer merit scholarships when students accepted it, and they do this based on, again, number of different criteria. It does vary from college to college, but the primary way it's done is through students' GPAs, test scores, and class rank. What you see over on the right-hand column, this is from Western Illinois University, and they're very transparent with this. And again, a lot of schools are. Again, not all, but a lot of schools will let you know if you have a certain GPA, if you have a certain test score, this is what it's going to be off per year. So again, for Western, if you have above a 3.0 GPA, you are going to get some academic money. So again, that's above a 3.0 GPA. And then roughly how this translates is about a 1030 on the SAT. So if you have that, you're potentially looking at getting $2,000 to $5,000 off. And again, the more the test scores go up for them, and this is again why you want to take the ACT or SAT more than once. As you can see, as the test scores go up, so do the amount of scholarships, going up to their $10,000 per year annual scholarship off. And that's if a student gets a 1360 on their SAT and has above a 3.0 GPA. And again, if there's colleges that you or your student are interested in, all you really have to do in many cases is just go to your search engine and plug in University of whatever it is, merit scholarships, and a lot of times you'll be able to see what those criteria are for scholarship awards. All right, so another way to kind of anticipate what that cost of tuition could be is using what's called net cost calculators. So as I said, every college on their website, on their brochures, list the sticker price. And again, as we said, that's usually not the amount that students and families have to pay. In fact, it's very rare that students and families actually have to pay that exact sticker price. However, they also don't let you know what the amount that you have to pay is after financial aid is done in October, or hopefully early in October, until like February, March, or even later sometimes. And then a lot of times families have to turn around and make their decision by May 1st, which doesn't give a lot of turnaround time to think about these things. So one way you can kind of estimate what that might be for your student is by using what's called a net cost calculator. The Department of Education requires colleges to provide a net cost calculator somewhere on their websites, usually in their financial aid and tuition section. And it allows students and families to plug in some basic academic information, some basic financial information, and family information, and they will go ahead and give an estimated cost of attendance. Again, they're just estimates. It's not a guarantee of anything. So again, that's not the final tuition, but it can, they're usually fairly close to what it actually is. So again, we would encourage students and families to do these in advance, just so they have an idea of what those costs could be. Again, as you can see over on the right-hand side, this is Lewis University. Their net cost calculator takes roughly about 3 minutes to do, and can show you that it goes from being roughly about $49,000 per year for this example student, down to about $20,000 per year, which in some cases may make that university feasible from a financial standpoint. So we definitely encourage students and families to look at those net cost calculators. All right, college location. This is a really big one. All students in high school think they're going here. This is the University of Hawaii at Manoa, or some version of here, University of Miami, Arizona State. It's always somewhere warm and sunny, especially right around February here in lovely Illinois, where again, we usually have a foot of snow on the ground and it's gray for the better part of 3 months. Again, it makes sense. So in the reality, why all students think they're going here, the vast majority of graduating seniors go to school within 4 hours from home. And the reason for that 3 to 4 hour mark, why that's kind of the sweet spot, is because the students can go away, they can get the feeling that they're independent, right? That sense of independence of them away from home, away from family, but yet if they need to come home on the weekend and get a home cooked meal or see their friends from high school, or in some cases just do laundry, they can still do that. So again, it kind of creates a little sense of independence while having the ability to get back home to those, to what they've always known for the better part of 17 or 18 years. But with that being said, if your student is interested in exploring a different region of the country, it can be a really amazing experience. Each geographical region is a little bit unique in this country, and students can really get to experience that. And it's a great time to do that while you're in college. If that is the case, if your student is looking to go to the East Coast, down to Florida, over out west, or wherever it is, if that's the case, we really, really recommend taking some visits out to those institutions. Just because, again, we don't want your student to commit to going to a school, your family pays the deposit, they pay the housing, the student get out there and realize this is not the right fit. And I can say through my many years of doing this, I have had an instance where a student family did that. They just kind of rolled the dice, and the student ended up going actually to the University of Hawaii without ever having stepped foot on the campus. The student realized within about a week, they were very homesick. This was not the school for them. And unfortunately, the family ended up losing a significant amount of money. And that student didn't get any credits from there and came back home. And again, a lot of that could have been solved potentially by going to visiting the school. We know it's not easy oftentimes to commit to going a distance away, either through airfare or travel, but it's definitely still recommended, especially because the $400 plane trip might save potentially thousands of dollars if the student realizes that's not the school for them. So it's definitely something we would recommend, especially if the student is very serious about going a great distance from home. And if they do, one of our best recommendations that we have is, if they end up going a distance from home, is seeing what resources are there to assist the student in that transition. Are there family, friends, or relatives anywhere in the nearby where a student can get to just talk to somebody they're familiar with, or to get that sense of comfort if they need to, if they're having difficult times, or if not, just identify those resources at the school. there's usually counselors and staff available to help with those students who are coming from a great distance away. Again, we want to provide them with as many resources to make their transition to that college as smooth as possible. Again, also looking at selected majors is one of those criteria that we want students and families to consider. Again, that's if they have a specific major in mind. If they don't know what they want to do, that's okay. I know years ago that really used to be kind of a thing that was frowned upon is going into college undecided. But the reality is the vast, I want to say the latest statistic was about over 60% of students change their major in college at least once, and almost half of college students change their major twice. And again, that's not their fault. They're 17 years old. They may not really know what engineering is all about, or they may not know what microbiology is all about. They get more information and they realize, that might not be for me. And that's okay. It's okay to admit that I'm really not sure about what I want to do. Students will have those opportunities their first 2 years in college to explore those areas of interest and then declare a major by the end of sophomore year. But if your student has known what they want to do and they're fairly confident that that is the major they want to attack, and again, whatever it is, that's obviously up to them. That's definitely one of the things we want them to look at. If they want to be a nurse, looking at the nursing programs at those institutions, making sure the college that they're looking at has a nursing program. Same thing, engineering, business, biology, education, whatever it is. Do some research into what those programs offer. Do they provide internship experiences? Do they provide job fairs for students specifically in those majors? Do they bring people in the field in to meet with their students to give them a real glimpse of what life is like in that career field? So again, we want students, if they know what they want to do and they're fairly confident in that, to look at those majors at the different schools. Then we want them looking at clubs and student organizations as well. Again, as I said before, this is really big for college admissions people to know that students are going to get involved. And the nice thing is the vast majority of colleges offer a really wide variety of activities for students to do. Again, it could be student government, fraternity sororities, intramural activities, lots of different things to do. Essentially, if you did it here at EP, it's probably going to be available on a college campus. In addition to a lot of other things. There's also unique clubs. University of Minnesota has the People Watching Club. Northwestern has the Happiness Club, where they bring cookies to the library around finals. They bring puppies around the dorms just to bring a smile to people's faces prior to a stressful time in the academic year. University of Illinois has a Squirrel Watching Club. So again, there's a lot of unique things to do. University of Chicago had a Quidditch Club for those that were interested. So again, we like to think there's always something for students to do, and we want students to get involved. So taking a look at what clubs and organizations that are available on the different campuses can hopefully help them feel like they would feel more comfortable at the school, and helps them get the most out of their college experience. And additionally, social atmosphere. Again, as you can see right here, college students spend about 15, 18 hours per week in the classroom. That's it. Right now at EP, traditionally at EP, let's say there's a student, an in-season athlete, and again, this could apply to anybody that's in the musical, that's in band. Students are here about 40 to 45 hours per week when they're involved in something, which means that when they're in college, they're going to have a lot more time on their hands to do with really what they like. We obviously want them to use some of that time studying, but the reality is they will be pretty independent. So being comfortable on that college campus, being comfortable in that social atmosphere is a really important factor in whether or not those students stay at that college beyond their freshman year. And again, the best way to gauge that is to go and get on that campus, which we'll talk about a little bit more. Again, whether that is just going through a tour and then going back, doing an overnight visit. Again, that's really the best ways to judge the social atmosphere is to actually get on the college campus. So again, after students and families have gone through those criteria, they thought about what they want out of their college experience. All right, now we start to build the list a little bit. And typical lists look like this. Again, this is typical. Some students, will apply to less, some students will apply to more, and that's fine. But on average, most students that are applying to 2 or 4-year colleges typically apply to 5 to 7 colleges. And we encourage the list to look somewhat like this. Have 1 or 2 of those reach or dream schools, which means that your academic profile might be a little bit lower than the average admitted student. So let's say, for example, you wanted to apply to Illinois Wesleyan University, and Illinois Wesleyan's average GPA that gets accepted is like a 3.9. And my GPA is a 3.8. Well, go ahead and apply to that, obviously. I've always wanted to go there, send in the application, even though my GPA is a little bit lower. Again, as we said, those middle 50% ranges or averages, they're just that. Again, students get in all the time with academic marks slightly below the average admitted student that is put out there on the school's website. So 1 or 2 of those is great. If you've always wanted to apply to University of North Carolina, go ahead and apply. This is the one chance you have to take your shot at it. 3 to 4 schools. So the majority of places you apply, those are schools you want to be relatively assured that you're likely to get in. You're right at the academic marks or you exceed them for admission. Ones that when you hit submit on that application, you're pretty confident that you're going to get an acceptance letter back in a reasonable amount of time. And then we always encourage students to have 2 or 3 safety schools. Again, I wish I had a better term for it. I just don't. Those are places you are pretty sure you're going to get in. You greatly exceed the academic standards for admission. Again, you're really, really confident when you hit admit or when you hit apply that you are in at that school. And a lot of times, the nice thing about safety schools is because students tend to be above the academic marks, that those are schools that a lot of times will be able to offer a little bit more in terms of merit-based scholarships. And again, we want all the schools on the list to meet most of the students' established criteria. Again, from the academic marks to the school size to the social atmosphere, to the location. Even though it's a safety school, we want it to meet most of the criteria on the list. Again, just because that gives the students variety, gives them options when it comes time to actually picking where they want to go to college. Just to show you a couple example lists from real students in the past. Again, as you can see, these lists vary from student to student. Student on the left was interested in majoring in business, had taken a predominantly honors and AP track while in high school. And again, the dream school was Notre Dame and University of Chicago. The schools they applied that were likely were Indiana, DePaul, Valpo, Michigan State, and then they had some safety schools down there. And again, the schools that are highlighted in white, those were the schools they were accepted to. So as you can see, the student, even though they were a very good academic student, did not get into Notre Dame, did not get into the University of Chicago. In the end, they ended up attending Indiana University at Bloomington. Student on the right, again, had some struggles early on throughout high school, pulled up their GPA to a 2.5, did pretty well on the SAT. And this student also took the ACT as well. But their dream school was Indiana University. And again, we use that example because it just happens to fit really well for this. So as you could see, the likely school for the student on the left was the dream school for the student on the right. So again, it differs by your interest. It differs by your academic marks as well. They applied to a bunch of likely schools, Marian University in Wisconsin, SIU Carbondale, and you can see them there. They did not get into all their likely schools. They did not get into Arizona State. They did not get into Northern Michigan. They did get into both their safety schools. And in the end, the student ended up attending SIU Carbondale. And pleased to report both students, they've already graduated college, but again, they graduated college. They did really well and are now on with future careers. But as you can see, every student's list should be a little bit different in terms of both how they're built and the schools they're looking at as well. All right, so we have a lot of resources there to help students. Not only are they going to meet with their counselor, during junior year, and then, really early on in senior year, the predominant focus for us in the counseling department is working with those seniors, not only through applications, but just answering questions and bouncing ideas back and forth between us. But we do have a lot of great online resources available. First one is Naviance. All our students here at EPCHS have personalized Naviance accounts. Please, please, please use them. Again, It's really great from a functional standpoint and helps the student identify what those schools could be, gain a lot of information about colleges in kind of a one-stop shop. Um, One of the best functions of Naviance is the uh, super match function. And this is where students can put in that criteria we talked about. And what it's going to do is by putting in the criteria, it's actually going to filter out colleges and universities. And in the end, it matches that student with colleges that fit what they're looking for. So if I am looking for a mid-sized school in the Midwest that offers a nursing program and also has softball and a student newspaper and has between 8 and 2,000 students, it will give me just those schools. And then what I can do from there is I can go and I can look more deeply at those schools. I can go into more depth. And maybe there's a school I've never heard of or I'm not really aware of that makes sense because it matches all my criteria, and I can get more information through there. Again, this can be accessed through the student section of the Evergreen Park website. Again, as I said, information in all colleges in the United States, as well as other countries as well. And again, it also allows students to see how specifically Evergreen Park students have done in regards to admissions for various universities. Students from Evergreen Park, did the majority of them get into this school? Did the majority of them not? Again, just kind of helps them gauge their likelihood for acceptance and could be helpful as they build that list. And again, another resource could be Big Future from College Board. Has a lot of information that's similar to Naviance, but again, it can be accessed pretty quickly. This does also, one of the best functions of Big Future from College Board is access to the net cost calculator, which I spoke about earlier. Again, just allows students and families to get a estimated idea of what that financial aid package is going to look like from colleges and universities. So again, we have got the criteria done. The list is done. We know the schools that they're going to apply to. We've given it great thought, and now it's time to apply. So there's a couple things we want to make students and parents aware of, just the different types of applications that they're probably going to see. We want them to be familiar with the terminology and what these mean. Again, applications can be accessed right through the college's undergraduate admissions website. It's usually on the homepage. If it's not, just go to undergraduate admissions. They almost always have something that says apply here. Very easy to see because, again, they don't want students missing it and then not applying to their college. But the different types of applications that you may see are regular decision, rolling admission, early action or priority, and early decision. And we will kind of just hit briefly on what each of these mean. So again, rolling admission. This means there's no deadline for the schools. As the applications come in, colleges evaluate them and then make a decision. So it's kind of just think of like a ball, right? So it just keeps turning over and over again. Application comes in, reviewed, admit. Application comes in, review, decision. Application comes in, review, decision. And they do that until their freshman class is full, which means they don't have a definitive deadline date. They just take students until whatever amount of students that they decide they can host. That's how many they admit till. What's nice about these schools is because they don't admit on a specific date, a lot of times students can get back their admissions decision fairly quickly, a lot of times within 2 to 6 weeks. So again, just if you see that, just kind of be aware, a lot of students will look and say, well, this doesn't have a deadline. What do I do? Don't worry about it. That's why, is because they're going to keep taking students until their class is full. We don't know if that's going to be in March or we don't know if that's going to be in May. So a lot of times those will be some of the first applications sent out. So early action and priority, it essentially mean the same thing, but those two terms are used somewhat interchangeably by various universities. What that means is those applications are due usually by November 1st. Again, November 1st is typically the early action or priority deadline date. However, not for every school, just like anything with 5,500 colleges and universities, it varies from school to school, but November 1st is the most popular date. What that means, if a student gets all their information and application to that school by November 1st, the colleges will usually give them a decision by January. There's no commitment. If you're accepted, it's just you find out earlier. And again, another real benefit to applying early is not only do you get priority consideration for admission, because again, the colleges know that you are serious about applying there. And again, more students are accepted under the early action program than under the regular decision program. So again, not only does it give you increased opportunities to be accepted, but increased opportunities for scholarship, because this is when that time when universities have the full amount of their awards to give out. So again, the benefits to students are, again, as I said, numerous. Not only do you find out early, you give yourself better chances to get in, but you also are likely to get more money from those schools as well. So again, we really encourage students, if their test scores and GPAs are ready to go, apply early by early action priority. So again, it's early action tends to be associated with the common application, which we'll talk about more a little bit later. So the next thing we want to talk about is, again, that common application. So the common application is something that's used by 700 colleges and universities. Again, what's nice about it is that a student can apply using this application and send it off to a number of places. In some cases, it's a little rare, but in some cases, a student will only fill out the common application, and just because of the way it works out with the schools they're going to apply to, all the schools just happen to be members of the common application. Again, it takes a while to complete, but once it's done, it's very convenient then to send applications to multiple schools that are a part of that. It does include an essay as well, so something students have to prepare for, and we'll talk about more a little bit later. The Common App links with Naviance, so that portal that I mentioned a little bit earlier. Not only is Naviance great for helping research colleges, but Naviance is also the way that we're going to send out transcripts, and it links right with the Common App. In order to do so, students must use their Evergreen Park email address when completing the Common App. That's something they will hear about continuously throughout the spring and fall, because that way the two databases communicate with each other, and we can get transcripts and supplemental materials to the colleges extremely quickly. Again, it's not something that should be completed in a night. However, if students take 25 minutes for a couple nights to fill this out, it can be done within a week. And again, we would encourage them to do so. Another type of application that they are likely to see is what's called the self-reported academic report. And this is something that's gaining popularity from a number of colleges. The University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, Purdue, University of Iowa are doing this, and more come on every year. And what this is they are asking students to just simply tell us what you did in high school. They want students to list every class they took in high school and every grade they received for every marking period. And then that's what they're going to use to evaluate that student. Again, essentially, they're taking the student's word that they are doing this honestly, and they're going to make their decision based on that. Here's the thing. For any students that are filling these out, we are going to highly recommend that they ask for a copy of their transcript from their counselor. Again, really easy for us to get to them. For the reason is we want them having that exact information in front of them, not guessing at anything. Because what will happen is, again, as I said, the institutions make their admissions decision based on what the student sends in. And if the student is accepted and decides to go there, well, then the university asks for the final transcript to verify graduation, and then to verify that the information the student submitted on their application was accurate. If there are discrepancies between what the student put down and what's on the actual transcript, the school will reject that admissions offer. I have actually seen this happen. I was working at one of the institutions that does this in the summer, helping them out, and I have actually seen these sent out because if the student told the university that they were an A and B student, and when the final transcript comes in from the high school and it turns out they're more of a C student, then that is considered dishonesty, and the institution will go ahead and revoke that. And a lot of times, unfortunately, that time when they revoke the admissions offer, tends to be in August, which means the student spent all this time getting ready to go to that school. The family spent all this time getting ready, and they will get notification in August. You are not going to that college because you were dishonest on your application. So we want all students from Evergreen Park having the accurate information with them when they fill these out. Again, it's just simply asking your counselor for your transcript. We can get it to you really, really quickly. All right, so I want to go back real quick and talk about early decision. So as I mentioned, early action, early priority is you apply early, get notification early, better odds admission, better odds for scholarships. Early decision has a lot of those same things with one big disclaimer. So if you apply early decision, again, it's by an early date, it's usually November 1st, you are going to get better consideration for getting into the school. You're going to get better consideration for the scholarships. However, under an early decision program, if you, and you have to sign a contract, you actually have parents, students, parents and guardians, students, and the counselor all have to sign the early decision contract when a student applies. And if the student gets in, they are committed to going to that institution. And again, if they get in January, they may not know what the financial aid amount is. But it doesn't matter because the student family has already said that we are going to that school no matter what. So again, it's just something that students and families have to be familiar with or have to be comfortable with, is committing to a school without knowing what the actual cost is going to be. Again, it is a legally binding document. You are on the hook for that money, and to go to that school. Again, you are essentially committing yourself early. As it says, this is your early decision. By doing this, and if you are accepted to that school, you have taken any other decision out of there. Any other consideration, they will require you to reject or to withdraw all your other applications and commit to that school. So again, this is something we just want students and their families to be aware of. All right, so now that we know a little bit about the types of applications that students are going to see, the essay. As I mentioned, this is required not only on the common application, but for a lot of different applications that are out there. This can be a real big factor in determining whether or not students get in, and sometimes scholarships. This is the one chance the student has to let the college know who they are, right? Because again, think about the applications that come in, the thousands of applications that come into colleges. It's names, but it's really just GPAs, activities, classes, test scores, right? Every student, does tend to feel the same. But the essay is a student's chance to let them know who they are, what their personality is, what they've overcome in getting them to this point, and why they're a great fit at that college or university. So again, we really encourage them to take this incredibly seriously. Now, the great thing is our junior year composition teachers work so incredibly well with our students in making sure that they have a really good college essay ready to go by the end of junior year. With that being said, the worst mistake a student can make in regards to the essay is to write it at the last minute, not have it reviewed. I don't know very many writers in general that can just sit down under a deadline and put out their best possible product. So again, this is why we have our students start writing their essays during junior year. Other people are going to review it, not only their junior year teachers, but have other trusted individuals look at it. Have your counselor review it. I know we review many, many, many essays during the admissions season. Again, because more eyes on it can help you see errors that maybe you wouldn't have caught. Or maybe you intended something to come out in writing the essay a certain way, and it just doesn't come off that way to a different reader. So again, give it the time and respect it deserves, because it is an important part of the application process. Again, a couple just practical notes. When you're writing the essay, make sure you answer the question. Don't use an essay that you've already written that doesn't fit what the prompt is. Again, this happens very often where you will read an essay and you're like, it's a really good essay, but it doesn't really answer what I'm asking. And again, it just shows a student can't follow directions. more than anything. And again, that's really key. So again, even if it means having to write a new essay for a new prompt, do it rather than trying to make something fit where it really doesn't. Again, as somebody who has helped review essays for several different colleges and universities, I can tell you that they can pick up pretty quick when a student already had an essay written and doesn't want to write another one, and they're trying to just make it fit, even though it really doesn't. Another big one is stay within the parameters. If the college asks for 500 words, don't give them 1,000. Sometimes the thought process for students is I'm going to show them I'm twice the student that they're looking for, so I'm going to give them double the words. No. College admissions people have to read a ton of essays. Again, in some cases, hundreds and hundreds of years. They know what 500 words looks like. It's roughly about 3/4 of a page. If they start seeing page after page come in, they're only going to read that 500 words. That's all they're required to read. So if they ask for 500, you gave them 1,000, and the last part of your essay was the greatest thing ever written, they're not going to read it because they're going to get to about 500 words and they're going to stop. Because again, shows you couldn't follow the directions they gave. So again, make your essay fit to the parameters that they provided. Again, can you go 505? Absolutely, they're still going to read it. If you don't also want to go, don't give them 100 words just to ease the workload on them. So again, be roughly about 500 words. And again, make it quality within those parameters. Focus on your strengths, passions, what makes you unique, what makes you a person they want to have on their campus. Again, you're selling yourself a little bit to this college and university. If there's something you're passionate about, it's usually really easy to write about. Expand upon that. Again, focus on what makes you a person they want. Make it hard for them to not want you on their campus. So again, really focus on those strengths and passions. And again, what makes you you? Uniqueness is good in college. It really is. I know sometimes in high school, we feel like we may not want to be unique. We may not want to stand out. We may not want to be different. Colleges are looking for different. They're looking for unique. So whether or not that's unique talent, unique skill, unique hobby, unique passion, don't be afraid to let them know what that is. Also, if they ask for it, let them know why this college is a good fit for you. Again, look beyond their homepage. Don't quote them what their school motto is. College admissions people can't stand that. So again, you want to have some real experience with that specific college and why it really is a good fit for you. And again, we're going to encourage you to visit those schools, do your research, and again, be able to to talk about why that's a good fit. And again, make it about you. One of the biggest prompts that you'll see out there is tell us about a person who's influenced you. Again, it's an incredibly common prompt. And a lot of times, the biggest mistake students make is they will use all the words given to describe that person and talk about how great mom is. She is. But at the end of it, the college admissions person knows more about your mom than you, or knows more about your dad or grandpa or uncle or whoever it is. And they don't know anything about you. And they, truthfully, they'd probably rather admit that person than you because they don't know anything about you. So what you want to do is you want to take that influence, that person, talk about the qualities that you've seen in them and how you have implemented them in your own life, right? So again, take that and make it about yourself. Again, that's a very big stumbling block for students. A couple more: be creative. Again, as I said, they sometimes read thousands of these per year. If you can stand out for the rest, it's always helpful. Even just a couple good opening line is really important. Helps grab that attention. They have read 1,000 essays about high school football. It's the reality. And again, just high school football is an example, but any sports. It's high school football tends to be the most commonly written about prompt or essay. So again, if you're going to write about it, you better find a way to be creative from the hundreds and hundreds of other students that are writing about the same thing. Again, doesn't mean it can't be true, can't be important in your life, but you do want to be creative within this because again, they're reading hundreds of these, and we want to stand out. Focus now you've grown and changed throughout high school. You shouldn't be the same person in your senior year of high school that you were as a freshman. How have you made yourself better? What challenges have you overcome to make yourself a better person and a person who's ready to go to that college? Do not repeat what's in the application. Do not give them a list of the activities you've been involved in, the awards you've won. It's already in the application. They can see it, they can read it. So again, don't waste those 500 words just repeating what they can already see. Be very wary of humor and tone. Again, interjecting humor can be difficult. Jokes and sarcasm specifically don't translate very well on paper sometimes. So again, this is why we want people reading it, multiple people reading it that would maybe catch some of those things. It's okay if you have a good essay to use that essay more than once, as long as the prompt is the same. As I talked about a little bit earlier, you don't want to make a good essay fit where it really doesn't fit just because you've already written it. But if two schools have the exact same prompt, yes, you can go ahead and use that essay for both schools. Again, just has to be the same prompt. The only thing I would recommend you do is, again, proofread it, because if at any point you use the name of a college in an essay, make sure you change the name if you're using that essay for somewhere else. A reader at the University of Iowa doesn't want to read about how your dream has always been to go to Western Michigan. Again, just shows a little bit of carelessness. So again, recycling essay is a good idea if the prompts are the same. But if you use the name of the college in the essay, you got to make sure you change it for each of those schools. And again, as we talked about multiple times, have at least 3 readers. Again, one of which we know is going to be your English and composition teacher, who will be a valuable resource to you throughout. But 3 other trusted people. It could be an older brother, older sister who's been through this process before, parents, counselor, coach, moderator, whoever it is. Get some eyes on there that can give you some constructive feedback for the essay. Next is recommendation letters. These are things that factor in as well. Again, they can be a determining factor, especially when those admissions decisions are close. So again, what we would encourage you to do when you're asking, the teacher, employer, administrator, counselor for that letter of recommendation, provide them with some information about yourself. Your teacher may know about you from being in their Algebra 2 class, but they might not know everything that you've done. That could provide them with a little bit more to talk about in that letter. So you want to give them, essentially almost a resume of things you've done throughout high school. And you also want to at least give them 2 weeks prior to any deadline, because again, they're going to be busy, right? Think about during that fall season, teachers are lesson planning and grading, and a lot of times they're also coaches or moderators. So again, it's not fair to ask them for a letter of recommendation a day before it's due. You want to give them at least 2 weeks, and most teachers can usually get that done. And please, 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 please ask them in person. Again, it's just a more personalized touch. If they're going to be taking time out of their day to write a letter that helps you get into college, the least we can do is just ask them, look them in the eye, and ask them in person to please write them a letter. So again, we also want students to give thought into who they ask. Again, think about who knows you well, who knows your abilities, classes you've been successful in, or if you've overcome specific obstacles working with a teacher. Those are always great people to ask. Don't just ask anybody. They usually recommend asking junior or sophomore year teachers, and the reason why is, again, most people are applying in the fall of their senior year, and a lot of times you don't know your senior teachers that well, or your senior teachers, vice versa, will not know you that well. Again, freshman year was a long time ago, but junior teachers have a really good idea of who you are as a student, because it's still within the general time frame. And lastly, teachers can and will say no, depending on the circumstances. So again, we tell our teachers, if you can't write a good essay about a student, if you can't make it meaningful, if you can't make it help that student get into that school, then just politely decline. Again, we don't want something subpar going out there on your behalf. So please give some thought to who you ask for that letter of recommendation. All right, so you have done all that. So you've not only found the schools you're going to apply to, you've done it. You've applied. You did the essay, the recommendation letters, you've hit accepted, you've paid the fee. Here's what comes next. So the students really need to know, number one, what supplemental materials they need to have for those colleges, right? Every school is a little different. Some schools you apply to and that's it. They just say, send the transcripts. Other schools will say send the transcripts, and then we need this form from the school. Again, just they will let you know what they need. Just make sure you read what every college requires. After that, request to have your transcripts submitted to the school through Naviance. Again, we will give the students the Naviance tutorial very early on in senior year, but that is the way that we request transcripts through students' Naviance account, and it gets sent electronically to those schools. Send the test scores directly from the testing agency, again, either SAT or ACT, if it is required. So we put the students' SAT or ACT scores on our transcripts here at EPCHS. However, there are many, many colleges that will not consider that unless it actually comes from SAT or ACT. And the wording they will look is it will say they require scores sent directly from the testing agency. Again, that means that even if they get the transcript from Evergreen Park and they can see that score, because it wasn't sent from SAT or ACT, they're not going to look at it. So again, what the student then has to do is go to either their College Board account for the SAT or their ACT account and have that score sent to that college and university. So again, every school has a little different policy on this, but it's something that students have to be aware of, because in many cases, if students don't, what will happen is they're not going to have their application reviewed. They will have their transcript there, the grades there, but it'll say like, you still didn't send our test score, so we're not going to review. The application is not complete. Again, just something for students and families to be aware of, that many colleges will require something sent directly from the testing agency. We always say it's a good idea for students, again, this is something on the student end, that students follow up with the school's admissions representative a couple weeks after applying. And again, that admission person is going to be your primary contact for getting not only information about the school, but also a lot of times it's who makes the actual decision on whether or not you get in. So it's always a good idea to kind of introduce yourself. See, is there anything else you can do to help in the process? Is there any other information you need to have as an applicant? Again, what it also does is it gets you on their radar. And if a little bit of a relationship can be developed with that admissions person, that's a good thing. Because again, human nature, if they know you as a student and they kind of like you, it's harder to deny students that you are fond of. Again, just that little human nature, human psychology. Again, staying in contact, emailing that admissions person, a couple times is a really good thing. Stalking them is not. We always say don't email them every day. Again, it's a little much. Again, they have thousands, in some cases thousands of students they're working with on a yearly basis. So you don't want to bombard them with questions, but you want to reach out just to let them know you're there. And as again, they're outstanding resources for their respective schools. You also want to check this with the admissions person or the website to see what additional scholarships are out there for incoming freshmen. As I said, the majority of scholarships are awarded when students are admitted. A lot of times at different schools, there are additional scholarships that students can apply for. Again, best way to find that out is through the admissions counselor or through the websites. Something also to be aware of, and this is just, students and families as well, is just know you are going to get an email or a letter from the college saying they don't have your information. It's going to happen. They're going to say, we don't have your transcripts, we don't have your test scores. And a lot of times students really panic about this. They're like, well, we sent our test scores. We sent the transcript. What happened? Why am I getting this? These are automatically generated emails. In colleges' systems, and again, depends on the college, those letters will be sent out automatically, or the emails will be sent out automatically. Sometimes it's a week after a student applies. Sometimes it's 2 weeks after a student applies. Don't panic. If you have requested the transcript through Naviance, if you have gone to SAT or ACT because it's required and sent your test scores, just know they're there. You have to think about it like this. A lot of these colleges are receiving hundreds of applications and transcripts each and every day. So it does take some time to get everything processed through their system. If let's say after a few more weeks, you're just still worried about this, give the or give the admissions office a call, a lot of times they will just say, "Yep, everything's here. We realize, that letter goes out automatically," just to ease the process. If a couple months go by and you're still getting the same thing, let us know. And again, we can reach out to those admissions people as well. But again, don't panic when you get that initial letter saying we don't have anything from you. All right, so we realize, again, like we said at the beginning, the vast majority of this has been discussing four-year colleges. But the reality is a lot of our students really do benefit from thinking about community and or junior colleges. Um, Again, our primary community college is Moraine Valley. Again, that's the district we are in. So again, there's a number of different reasons why community colleges are outstanding choices. And again, it could be just maybe my grades weren't good enough to get in the school I wanted to go to, or maybe I just had a rough start in high school and didn't build up my grades enough to where they needed to be. Maybe it's from a financial standpoint. Again, I will show you in a little bit just some of the differences from the financial component. Maybe I or my family just can't afford to go away right now, or maybe it's maturity issues. Maybe your student, you've seen them and you're just like, I don't think they could handle going away and going to school at this time. A lot of times students realize this. They just say, I'm just not ready to go away. So again, for a number of reasons, this, community college is a great choice. So again, Moraine Valley is an outstanding way to stay on track for completing academic coursework. Again, we'll tell you more in a little bit about the best ways to stay on track. So again, great thing about community or junior college is once you start there as a college student, you restart your GPA. So if you had a 2.2 grade point average when you graduated Evergreen Park, if you go to Moraine Valley or community or junior college and you have a 4.0 GPA, well, when you're ready to move on to the next college or the four-year institution, that's all they're going to look at. They're not going to come back and look at your grades from high school. They're going to look at your grades from community college or junior college. So again, essentially you get a chance to restart. Again, as I mentioned, it's also an affordable route. The per credit prices are often 50 to 75% less than four-year schools. So again, after a student decides they want to go to Moraine Valley or a different junior college, the next step is, take the placement test at the school and select courses with an academic advisor. And this is my best suggestion. Do not ever pick courses randomly or by yourself. Sit down with an academic advisor every semester before you pick out courses, because they will ensure that the classes you are picking are going to transfer over to the four-year institution that you're looking at going to next. So if you sit down with your academic advisor at Moraine Valley, when you go there as a freshman, you say, I want to go to the University of Illinois at Chicago, and I want to major in biology. They will make sure that you are picking classes that not only transfer over, but make sure you're not taking classes that you get nothing out of, no credits. Again, don't randomly select courses. It's the biggest mistake students going to a junior or community college can make. So use those advisors for what they're there for. Again, sometimes, Moraine Valley is a wonderful option, but for students that do want to, and students and families that want their student to get the experience of living away from home, but maybe they didn't qualify for that four-year college, a lot of large universities do have junior or community colleges located really close to their campus. So let's say for University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign, there is Parkland College that's right down the block. At Illinois State University, they have Heartland College. What this does is this provides students with an option to live away from home. They would have to find some type of housing, but usually in those areas, there's a lot of student housing available. But allows them to go to that community or junior college to build up their grades and have that still, get their college credits built up to where they could potentially transfer into that next university. So again, for some students, that is a route to look for if, again, maybe their grades didn't qualify them, but they do want to, kind of get that college experience living away from home. All right, so here's again is why a community college can make sense. So we're showing you these are two of the public institutions in the state of Illinois, University of Illinois in Urbana-Champaign on the left, University of Illinois at Chicago on the right, and then Moraine Valley in the middle. So again, as you can see, yearly tuition varies greatly. Tuition at the University of Illinois At Urbana-Champaign is around 19,000. The reason you see an asterisk is because it also depends on the program you're taking. Students that are engineering majors at the University of Illinois pay more than students that are majoring in chemistry. And again, around 19,000. University of Illinois Chicago, roughly around 15,000 as well. As you can see, room and board is 11,000 at the University of Illinois. If students are going to UIC but just want to commute, take the train or drive down there, obviously there's no fee there other than your cost for gas and parking. In terms of additional expenses, University of Illinois is roughly around $3,000, Moraine Valley roughly around $2,000, and then UIC. So again, bringing your yearly total at University of Illinois to around $33,000 per year. Again, this is before any sort of financial aid is calculated. At Moraine Valley, that's about $5,600. The 4-year total for University of Illinois is $132,000. The 4-year total, if you went to UIC for all 4 years, is roughly about $60,000. But as you can see, right in the middle, near the lower half under the dotted line, the 4-year total, if a student then were to go to Moraine Valley for 2 years, then to University of Illinois for 2 years, total then drops to $77,000 for that experience, which would save families about $55,000 a year. And vice versa, if a student went to Moraine Valley for their first 2 years of their education, then commuted to UIC for the final 2 years, then the 4-year total would be $41,000. So again, this is where it can make sense from a financial standpoint. Again, going to Moraine Valley is a viable option for all of our students here at Evergreen Park Community High School. All right, so what's next? This is a lot of information that we've given you because this is a really important step that students are going to be taking in their academic experience. So what's next is this spring, focus on finishing strong. Again, second semester, junior year is in a lot of cases students' last chance, again, if they're applying in the fall, to boost their GPA. So again, you want to do whatever you can to show them you are ending high school on a strong note, to show them this is the student I am now, this is the student you're going to get, and it's a really good student. Again, prepare to take the SAT. Again, as I mentioned, all juniors are taking it here in school. If you are really thinking about going to that 4-year school, you should think about taking it at least another time, and potentially the ACT. Again, talk to those adults you want to write letters for you. Again, talk to those teachers now, talk to those coaches now, rather than trying to reach them a couple weeks before a deadline. If they can do that now, maybe they have a chance to write a really nice letter. And again, it's just something that will already be ready to go in the fall. Visit the schools. I cannot emphasize this one enough. We recognize that not every school is allowing tours at this time. The vast majority are. The vast majority of schools are up and running for tours. If you can, please take your student to go visit those colleges. We do allow students 2 days of excused absences, both junior or senior year, to go on college tours. Because again, looking at a website is good if that's all you're able to do. Virtual tours are great if you're able to, but nothing quite duplicates being on the college campus. But if you're not able to, again, reach out to the admissions office, do the virtual tour. It's kind of the next best thing. And then again, as we said earlier, think about the criteria that you're looking for in a college. Do your research, identify those schools that fit for what you want out of your college experience. So again, please start giving that serious thought, because again, this is a really big step for students. And for students, this is the first real big decision that you've probably played the leading role in your life. You probably didn't get to decide where you went to grammar school or high school. Now you should be taking the role. So do your research and take this process seriously. Then in the fall, make sure you look at the deadlines of the schools you're going to be applying to. Consider if you're applying to any of those early programs. Again, we really encourage students to apply to those priority and early action deadlines. Again, early decision only if it makes sense and if families are comfortable with kind of committing to the schools before knowing the financial package. If necessary, again, retake the ACT or SAT in the fall. They are offered a couple fall dates as well. And again, don't forget about senior year. A big mistake some students will make across the country is getting in to the colleges of their choice early in their senior year, and then they just tank their grades. Well, again, please remember, we send them grades after the first semester, and we send them your transcript after you graduate. And if you, after your junior year, you were a student that had a 3.5 GPA, but then you tanked senior year, and then we send them the final transcript, and all of a sudden that GPA went from being a 3.5 to a 2.8. Colleges do have the option to revoke those decisions. Any admissions decision a student gets is able to be revoked. So again, just don't forget about senior year. Senior aid can be a real thing, but do your part to make sure that you actually end up at the school you really want to go to. Again, during senior year, it's a great time to visit or revisit the schools, even if you were there once. Visit again just to see what it's like there in the fall. Sometimes this is a great opportunity to do an overnight visit that you can schedule through the admissions office. But again, we really encourage students and families to get out to those schools. Be flexible, for the students. Just because you have thought, for 5 years that you were going to go to the University of Iowa, if it turns out that the best fit for you is University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, then be flexible. Understand that things change. You get new information, your taste change. Be willing to kind of adjust to put yourself in the best position possible. And then for students and families, please complete the FAFSA soon after October 1st. FAFSA is, of course, the financial aid document that can get students grants, that can get them work study money, and also loans. So again, and that is a state and graduation requirement in the state of Illinois. It won't open until October 1st of 2021, so you still have some time. But you really do want to do that quickly after October 1st, just to make sure it's over and done with. So that being said, we know this is a lot of information that we've put out there. We hope you found it informative. We hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions, students, parents, guardians, please reach out to us here in the counseling department. We're here to help make sure that your students and you have as much support in this process as possible. Again, we can't thank you enough for listening and for watching. And again, go Mustangs.